Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about my best tips to learn drawing, whether it's nature or any other subject out there. Drawing is really the fundamental skill behind being an artist, being a visual artist. So if you want to keep a sketchbook and visualize your thoughts or make a great painting, if you have well-practiced drawing skills, this will help you immensely when you're trying to express yourself. So you could be a painter or a sculptor or an illustrator, any kind of visual art. In any field, you will benefit greatly from learning to draw really well. So this is the best gift that you can give yourself as an artist. And yeah, today I want to share some tips to help you get better at drawing. And while I'm talking about this, you will just see me continue drawing this bird and then later some flowers here so that you will have something calming and simple to look at while I'm talking. So I hope you will enjoy this little combined sketching and advice session. And the first thing that I'll have to say is just draw a lot. It might come as a surprise to some, but in order to become good at something, any skill, you just have to do it. Really a lot, preferably every day. And this method will work for any skill. It's just the way the brain works. If you offer it more of one thing, it will build nerve paths to respond more quickly to this thing in the future. You are reshaping your brain with every drawing, with every exercise that you do. You will learn something, even if it doesn't look like it right now. If you look back on your old drawings in a few months or in a year or in a few years, you will see, you will be able to see this. And so you will become better by simply drawing a lot. And you can modify this kind of practice a little bit to sort of tweak the results that you are getting by practicing deliberately. And for drawing, it works like this. You take all of your drawings and you analyze them, you assess them. You will probably instantly see what you're not good at, because most of us have really great taste. If you're interested in art, you will probably have this gap of being able to see what makes art great and what you like and the kind of things that you would like to do with a pencil or a brush. But you will see that maybe you're not quite there yet. So you will be able to spot the areas that need more work. So your mind is always a few steps ahead of your head. And so if you know the kind of drawing skills that you would like to have, then you can differentiate between the different skill levels. And if you see this and see what you're most struggling with, then note this, make a note for yourself and practice it deliberately. And you will see that you will become better at this one thing just by focusing on it. So maybe you're bad at drawing the human figure or plants or whatever kind of subject there is, architecture, and then focus on it and maybe draw it 50 times, 100 times, and you will definitely see that you will get better over time with this. Also be mindful and deliberate about your technique. Assess your bad drawing habits. And if you don't notice these things about your drawings, then ask a fellow artist, ask someone who's maybe a mentor to you, who's a teacher, who's a little bit ahead of you, who can spot these things and tell them in a nice way what you can do better about your drawings. So if you're maybe too hasty, slow down. You won't reach the next level, the better drawing skills, by rushing through every drawing, by thinking, oh, I can just do this quick thing and fix everything, and then I get to the fun part. You need to take your time and reflect what you're doing and do it consciously. So yes, gestural and quick drawing has its place. It's a really good practice method, but it's not a replacement for accurate observation and taking your time to draw what you see on the page and observe really the form of the object that you want to draw. So also look at your line work, look back and forth and compare the two, your subject and your lines, and study the shapes, study the values, the contrast, the texture, study your mark making, study perspective and proportion. And these are just some aspects of what makes a good drawing. So if you keep small practice sessions that are easy to commit to, maybe focusing on one subject only. And another thing is that I would suggest don't pressure yourself into challenges that you know you will probably fail at, particularly those on social media that emphasize comparison and making something every day over really intense learning. Because as soon as the platform has a social approval system like likes or hearts, I find it's not really good for these kind of deep learning experiences. I prefer looking back at my own work after a few weeks or months of practice to see how I've improved. Or another possibility is to take an intense class in which I can get feedback from someone who really knows his stuff and who can criticize me, but on a level that will help me and that will not just be like this social media improvement that essentially is really hollow and useless for you. The next tip I would like to give you is build a drawing habit out of your practice sessions. So once you have discovered that you actually can do this, and by the way, I think that anybody can learn to draw if they practice. Drawing is just a manual skill. So when you have taken these first steps, then don't stop there. You need to stay active in order to exercise your brain and your hand to activate this muscle memory. And any new skill will gradually disappear, and you will have to train yourself all over again, or almost. And making drawing a regular habit is one of the best things that you can do if you want to keep getting better, or even if you just want to stay at the skill level that you are at. So I find the best way to keep a drawing habit active is to keep a sketchbook. And this can be a nature sketchbook, a nature journal, or any kind of art journal. A sketchbook where you can practice your drawing in a playful and low pressure way. So you don't have to show this to anyone. You get yourself a sketchbook and fill it with drawings, fill it with doodles, with sketches, with exercises. You don't have to make finished art in it if you don't want to, because this is why it's called a sketchbook. It's for experimenting. And with daily drawing exercises and continuous work, you might see that a pattern will emerge, or maybe a style or a certain topic, and you will get ideas for other art pieces that way too. I found out only by keeping a sketchbook that I actually love to draw and paint birds and other animals and wildlife, and I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't tried a few years back. So let's take a look at some hands-on tips, at some drawing techniques to get you better immediately, or at least with very little practice. So here are my top 5 tips for getting better at drawing. This may be nature or architecture, anything really. The first thing would be pencil control. This is the first thing that you will have to learn. It is what kind of marks you can get out of your drawing tool. Practice making different kinds of marks. Practice drawing straight lines or curves, organic shapes like ellipses, circles. You will really need these in every drawing that you do. And it's vital to have a really good grasp of your tools. So practice with whatever you want. This could be a pencil, a pen, a colored pencil, any kind of drawing tool. My second tip would be to take your time and pay close attention to your subject. And this is something that most beginners, including me when I started out, tend to overlook. For an accurate drawing, you really need to observe your subject. So don't just rush through your drawing. Don't just draw what you think something looks like or what an idealized version of it looks like. Really take notice of every detail, angle, structure, and form. And yes, this will take time. This can mean you will draw really slowly in the beginning because you will have to look back and forth between your paper and your subject a lot, but this is fine, and things will speed up when you're accustomed to this process. And if you only look at what you're drawing once, and you will not learn to capture details correctly or even just the basic shape of an object. So maybe practice this skill with a very detailed object and complicated seeming objects, maybe something like a pine cone. And if you feel like you're lost every time you look up from your paper, then keep at it. Just continue and fight your way through. This will improve when your brain learns how to continue at the last point of reference. This is really something that you can learn. Of course, this is not a hard and fast rule, so you might only have a moment to look at something before it moves, like if you're in nature and you're trying to draw a bird or a cloud. So to modify this rule, you could practice something like memory drawing, where you only look at your object once, but for as long as you can, and then maybe describe the major shapes and the lines in your head, or actually say them out loud. And then if the object disappears or changes, then you can look away and draw it as precisely as you can. So these are techniques to help you to activate this kind of visual thinking that you need to draw. My next tip would be to consider shapes and forms in your drawings. And one central concept in drawing is that you can use three-dimensional forms instead of flat shapes to describe an object on the page. So this has really transformed the way I think about sketching and drawing. Since paper is a flat two-dimensional surface, but reality is three-dimensional, you will need a method to give an object a three-dimensional form on the page. And describing what you draw with flat geometric shapes like circles and rectangles and triangles is a good starting point, but you will need a more constructional approach that will make your drawings seem more lifelike, more realistic, more three-dimensional. So I've talked about this in another video that I've posted to this channel, and if you check it out, then you will see this constructional approach that I describe that really explains how this works. My fourth tip would be to start loose and finish with detail. So if you start with the basic shapes or forms of an object and sketch them in lightly with very light lines, then you can in the next step indicate angles and edges or creases in your outline or curves. And if you exaggerate these edges slightly in your first sketch, then you will soften them in the next step at a later stage. Don't start working on details right away from the beginning. You need to have all of these major shapes looking right. This means roughly the right size, the right angles, and the relations and proportions to each other. So think of the subject as different shapes or different forms combined to this big composite form. If these basic forms look wrong, then change them now, as long as you're in this loose and searching stage. You can't really do this later when you've already added some details, because you will have invested so much time that you think, oh, it doesn't matter if some of the proportions aren't right. I have this really beautiful texture and detail now on my drawing. So it will really cloud your judgment. I would like to give you to get better at drawing is to keep practicing. I know I've already said this, you're probably getting a bit tired of hearing it, but it's truly the most important tip out of all of these. In order to get better at drawing, you have to be drawing. It doesn't help to read more articles or to watch more videos like this. You need to get in some pencil miles. You need to sit down and draw. So any approach is great, and paying special attention to the things that I just mentioned will also really help you out. And of course, there are principles like proportion and perspective, contrast, values that are also important to create a good sketch or a good drawing. I have included all of these essential concepts in my drawing class, Sketching Fundamentals, and I also give special consideration to everything that I just mentioned. I find these are concepts that are often neglected when people want to learn to draw, and they can really make a difference, especially thinking what I said about this constructional approach, so thinking about forms instead of shapes, and also really taking your time to observe. So I really hope this was a helpful collection of tips for you. I would really like to hear what you are struggling with in your drawing practice, what you would maybe like to improve on, or what were concepts that were really helpful to you in your journey to get better at drawing. So let's discuss this in the comment section. You could also leave me a like or a subscription if you enjoy what I'm doing. And as always, you can find more about this and extended information on my blog and in my classes. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.